What's going on, Neon Nation? Welcome back to the Neon Arcade for some more Cyberpunk content. Today we're going to take a brief dive into dissecting what a Cyberpunk 2077 Netflix series would mean for the franchise, how The Witcher Netflix became such a success and its ripple effect, Henry Cavill versus Keanu Reeves and celebrity presences, some existing Cyberpunk-styled productions, and how this is a real possibility based off movements CDPR have already made with their Cyberpunk IP. The Witcher Netflix, despite lukewarm critic scores, has been an overwhelming success in terms of audience and fan reception, straight-up views and interest generated, as well as for the entities attached to the project. The Witcher Netflix crushed it in its United States debut, and although Netflix tends to keep their numbers close to their chest, third-party analytics have pinned it just behind Stranger Things and The Mandalorian in terms of recent original series and their impressive metrics. Let's be honest here, amongst the gaming population, The Witcher has almost unanimously been praised, especially the third installment, and has rocketed CD Projekt Red to the top of many open-world RPG and gaming enthusiast lists in terms of respect, notoriety, and quality. The Witcher Netflix single-handedly helped The Witcher 3 break its population numbers on Steam, a testament to how a game can be thrust back into the limelight even after its initial release with a powerful extrinsic sphere of influence. Henry Cavill and the Netflix name has furthermore pushed The Witcher to a much more mainstream audience, putting the series and the name in the living rooms of those who are detached from the video gaming world, but still consume modern entertainment as almost all of us who have a TV set or internet access do. Now extrapolate this to the potential of a Cyberpunk Netflix TV series or movie, and it has the ability to proliferate across the world. Cyberpunk 2077 is undoubtedly more popular than the Witcher games, at least in terms of initial entry. YouTube is a decent barometer for gauging public interest, and here we can see the numbers behind the trailers of The Witcher versus Cyberpunk. At least initially, there is quite the discrepancy. This is partially due to the CD Projekt Red name being held in higher regard with the gaming population as time goes on, but I also think that the Cyberpunk genre is something fresh and exciting for consumers, even if the actual genre dates back quite some time ago. This resurgence of the concept of high-tech, low-life parallels nicely with our real-world acceleration of technology, AI versus what it means to be human, the escapism of smartphones and being bombarded with the digitization of the world at every corner, as well as social media, which is oftentimes the source of politically and socially charged rumors, misinformations, opinions, and statements. Fantasy and the success of zombies in mainstream media has finally started to fizzle out, and it's the best time for audiences who have seen it all to latch onto something that has been less played out, but is still relevant and exciting. Now assume a series or movie launch that is within the predictable realm of how successful Cyberpunk 2077 as a game will be. It already has the celebrity endorsement to make the game itself more popular amongst a population who don't play video games, which in itself is opening the video gaming space to more people without even the need for a Netflix or TV adaptation. Combine this with the pedigree for CDPR to craft expert stories and polarizing characters. Out of the gates, this is positive for getting the Cyberpunk IP out there, even if the game itself is lackluster in its actual gameplay. Altered Carbon was one of the first, if not the first, Cyberpunk-themed projects to be picked up by Netflix, and it has been a somewhat niche success. The genre is picking up steam again, with adaptations of a live-action Akira, The Matrix 4, and more Ghost in the Shell standalone complex 2045 slated for the next couple years, but we all know how live actions of animes usually end up turning out, the disappointment of 2 whole thirds of the Matrix trilogy, and the odd animation changes to Ghost in the Shell's iconic visual style. While I hope these are good, it seems to be more of a case of cash grabs disguised as fan service of already established films. The mini resurgence of the genre has also brought about the dismal Ghost in the Shell Hollywood adaptation in 2017, and with people not even knowing they need a good cyberpunk movie or film, exactly that can open them up to much more thoughtful, nuanced cyberpunk works of the past, foregoing the nauseatingly over-the-top Hollywood productions who see only special effects and action sequences as a method of holding an audience's attention. With that being said, Cyberpunk on the big screen can do something its genre-based predecessors behind it has for the most part not done, and that is having overwhelmingly positive ratings to a larger and non-niche audience. Blade Runner 2049 almost achieved this, but despite its release in theaters worldwide was still classified as too niche to be a success of mass magnitude. The co-creator of 2077 and the main man behind its source material believes that a Cyberpunk 2077 movie would strike the balance between heady and thoughtful questions, action, emotion, and impressive and vibrant locations and sequences. This balance is important in making the film less isolating. Again, Blade Runner suffered immensely from frying its audience's synapses with too many layers of thought. It's not a film you can enjoy on autopilot for even a second, and it only speaks to the fringes of its audience. Mike Pondsmith mentions in an interview that, quote, "At this point we're teaching people about this new kind of cyberpunk. My favorite film is Blade Runner, but I recognize inherently that it's a cerebral film, and 2049 was even more cerebral. A cerebral film is not necessarily going to allow other people to enter that space and understand it, but at the same time, you don't want to do it totally action. If you've had the chance to read any of the source books from the early 90s that Cyberpunk 2077 is based upon, it immediately becomes apparent in how many different directions one can take when developing a poignant and provoking script. It's incredibly fleshed out, researched, and well written in its attempt to predict and tell compelling stories about the issues of the future. Cyberpunk 2077, from what we know, is already looking to be a gut punch from statements voice actors have been making about needing to take a break from being emotionally overwhelmed from the script, and hints from the lead quest designer on having quests and storylines that will leave the player reeling. The Witcher as an IP is great because it's built on the foundation of having strong works of Andrzej Sapkowski, and Cyberpunk cranks that up tenfold with thousands of pages of history and lore. Moving on, if a Cyberpunk movie is to come to fruition, what kind of visual take would be something that would generate some buzz or do the franchise justice? Play it safe and economical with a live action film, or explore more undefined territory. I remember when Beowulf was first teased many years ago when the industry had stagnated on live action interpretations. Beowulf broke through those barriers and developed a highly realistic animated depiction that blew many away, showcasing the power of having an adult and mature film be 100% computer generated. We've all seen the 2019 CGI trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 at this point, and just how impactful this brief 1-minute cross-section of this story is. An animated affair might be something feasible to depict the scale, colors, grittiness, and despair of the dark future that live action may not be able to portray. With Cyberpunk genre roots being deep-seated in anime, a gritty animation style seems to me as a potential natural evolution of making films that honor that cyberpunk motif. With The Witcher slated for an anime adaptation, we'll also see what kind of payoff this kind of experimentation has in terms of reception. So will this actually happen? Considering CDPR's licensing approach to Cyberpunk 2077 already, they're looking to make this franchise as big as humanly possible. Think Harry Potter, think Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, etc. With all their products already slated for release, from action figures to board games to stickers to clothing to art, Cyberpunk's virality can easily see itself creep into other areas, including the movie industry. Will we have to wait a long time for this? I'm sure we will, but in some form or another, be prepared to see Silverhand on the silver screen. Thanks for watching, guys, and for more Cyberpunk content, join Neon Nation by subscribing to the Neon Arcade.